Welcome to Life Transformation Radio. This show is all about life transformations and our journey from where we were to why we are doing what we are doing today. We will discuss the hiccups, the roller coasters, and the blood, sweat, and tears that has been poured out while discovering our purpose. It is all about our transformation. Here is your host, Sean Douglas.
Good afternoon and good evening, and welcome to another episode of Life Transformation Radio. I am your host, Master Resilience Implementer, TEDx speaker, business positioning strategist, and author, Sean Douglas. This show is currently heard in over 74 countries. So whether it's your first time joining us or you've been listening to us for some time, I want to thank you to those who are listening from wherever you are. Life Transformation Radio is all about our transformation. Here, we tell the stories of why we're doing what we're doing. We highlight that transformational moment that changed our lives and how we use it to then transform others and elevate their lives as well. You can listen to us live right here on the Blog Talk Radio Network Tuesday through Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Join our Facebook community, Life Transformation Radio Community, and you can interact with the fellow listeners and ask questions to the guests after the show. You can also subscribe wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Player FM, Radio Public, Overcast, CastBox, Himalaya app, and the Google Play Music app, and a whole host of other places. So wherever it is that you are currently listening to Life Transformation Radio, you can hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode. My guests are entrepreneurs, speakers, business owners, coaches, podcasters, authors, amazing people who are impacting the world around them. And my guest today does exactly that. If you have any questions for any of the guests that I bring on the show during our live broadcast, you can call us up at 657-383-1109. Again, the number is 657-383-1109. And with that, please help me welcome to the show my friend and my guest today, my buddy, James Van Prooyen. James, welcome to Life Transformation Radio.
Sean, it's a pleasure. I'm so excited. I loved having you on my podcast, and it's so exciting to have the honor to speak with you on yours, and I really love what you're doing, and have appreciated getting to know you in the last couple of years.
Man, it was just, we had met a couple of veteran groups in some different places, and, you find the real ones, right? Like, you find the good ones, and you're like, this dude's got it going on. And, I was just, maybe besides the fact that we're both Air Force, but it was like, man, your heart of service, you have a heart of gold. You're in it to win it. You're not one of those guys that I'm a podcast host today and then I'm teaching podcasting tomorrow. Like you don't just learn something one day and become an expert the next day. Like, you get it. You got to go to the conferences.
And
you
it's interesting you bring that up, because I would say life transformation. That's really been, when you say what has transformed my life, podcasting, and that's why I'm so in love with this medium. I love the ability to get a message out and to have, to niche down into some very specific things and have each one of us has the ability to get our messages out. And of course, I've loved watching you. I kind of got into this as I was getting out of the military, but for you to be so involved with it while you're in the military already still is really exciting for me. And I love that. Love what you're about.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. So the title of this episode is Veterans in Business with founder and podcast host James Van Prooyen. James has an IT background from a 20-year career in the United States Air Force. He is the founder of the Military Podcast Network. James is also the host of Veterans in Business show and the co-host of Ragnar Life Podcast. He is a Bunker Labs chapter city leader in San Francisco, California. You can learn more about him by going to his podcast website, veteransinbusinessshow.libsyn.com. It's right there in the show notes. His LinkedIn and his Facebook profiles are right there. Connect with him on those platforms. Send him a message and let him know that you heard him here at Life Transformation Radio. So my friend, the first question I have for you, and I think it is the most important question we could ever ask ourselves every day we wake up, is why. So what is your deep, deep why for what you do?
Yeah, and I think my why definitely changed through my military career. When I went into the Air Force, my grandfather was an electrician. They had a hotel in Lake Michigan, and so I never really had planned on traveling or moving or going anywhere else and doing anything else. And when my older brother went in the Air Force, I had thought, hey, let me go, I could do that for 4 years. Let me go do the military for 4 years and then come back and do what I was doing before, essentially, and just live happily ever after. But that really led to what my why is currently is by doing a full 20 years in the military and being a part of something that what I felt was bigger than myself, and just that service and the ability to affect people on a massive scale. That's something I think that a lot of veterans have a hard time leaving. And so the hard part for me was, as I was transitioning out, I couldn't go back to – it wasn't that I didn't want to. I mean, I had an IT background. I could have worked for the government. I could go back and be an electrician, but I wanted to affect something way bigger than that. And so I think at this point, through launching a podcast network in the military space, I felt like using podcasting and the message and getting our each individual story and the power of what we can do in these messages, that was what really resonated with me, is to just show the people what's possible and to give, the valuable real-time information for what people need at that time. So I think that's what my why is now, is just, legacy building. And I mean, it's bigger than all of us. And that's why I like to be involved, of course, when you mentioned Bunker Labs, and veterans, business was kind of I knew I wanted to be in business when I got in, and then when I got out, I knew I wanted to do business. In 2014, as I was transitioning out, I met a guy at a business organization called Cohost, who was just, that group was just getting into podcasting. And I was actually started to help out with the podcast conference podcast from day one. And it's just, once I saw the power of this, and where this industry was going, I was like, this is my why, is to build these things out, to build a media company, essentially using podcasting, and to affect so many people and get these relationships. So that's kind of how I met you. If it wasn't for that, I don't think I would probably know you either. We never served directly together at the time. So it's just that
definitely.
active service going forward. So.
Yeah, definitely. And you had mentioned just now, Podfest, and I mean, I knew about it in the past, but I didn't go. I was speaking at Outliers Podcast Festival and a couple of the other ones, Mid-Atlantic and some. And I noticed, I'm like, okay, what is this? And then I knew that you were going there, and then you and I had connected, through our different veteran organizations and things. And you're like, dude, you got to go, man. You got to go. And then I saw that they were, having speakers. I think you actually sent me the speaker link or whatever. Like, dude, here's the link, cool. And so I did, and I applied to do a talk there. And then I met everybody, I met Chris and I think I had known Daniel from a way back. I think it was like a New Media Summit or something like that. I met those guys, Kevin. But what was great about it was that we formed these relationships online, and then we go to an event, and it's like you've met them for the first time, but you've known about them for a while because you've had conversations. So it's just super cool to really see all of the podcast people that are really doing it. They're in the trenches, and they do it every day. But it was cool to talk to those guys, not through a computer, because most of our chats are usually through Facebook Messenger or something like that. And to see you thrive in that community. I mean, everybody's like, hey, James, what's going on? Hey, man, how are you? You knew everybody. This was you, man. You were in your element. And it was so amazing to watch you thrive in that element, man.
Thank you for that, Sean. And really, and it even goes back to the year before I was getting out of the military. I started volunteering for the business organization, helped Chris Kermitzes with a lot of the events. And so really Podcast became an extension of what he had already done before. So, that's really my entryway into going to a lot of conferences in the way that I do now. And it's like anything, right? If I did 20 years in the Air Force, I know a lot more people in the Air Force. So if I do 20 years, if I go to, each one of these conferences, over time, you just know more and more people because, you interact with, like you came this year for the first time, so we talked a little bit but never seen each other. So, it's just
right.
It's been years of building on that and just adding value. And I think that's, in a good way, I've been brought up that way. Like before I went in the military and 20 years in the Air Force teaches you, we used to have, I didn't like that at first, but we were forced to volunteer. But I got so much out of giving, and volunteering my time. And it's just becomes a big thing. And so, as you add value, and I got used to, lead with serve, serve first, as Pat Flynn and his community talk about. That resonates with me, and that's kind of how all these things have worked for me. Is I honestly care about other people and what they're doing. And, the way my mind works is like in real time. I'm talking to people. I'm already thinking of people that could help them do what they're wanting to do, and you just lead with that value. I love that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, man. And you definitely facilitate that network like I have never seen, man. I connect people together, but you do it at like scale. Like somebody could have a conversation, go, oh, I know like 3 people you need to contact with. Oh, there's 3 people here that you need to do this. Hey, there's this guy here. Hey, there's this one person and this guy. And you're always in that mindset of who do I know that could benefit this guy? Who do I know that is doing it like who's doing it right now at a level that this guy needs to be doing it at? Let me get him in contact. Oh, I know this guy can help this guy, who can help this guy, who can help this guy. Let me connect those dudes together. And, dude, if you had to create another business, it would be some kind of a connecting business, like a business matchmaker business.
Yeah. Well, but what's so I want to say a couple of things. I mean, for me, as I look back, and then I'm evaluating. I mean, I just turned 43, so it feels still young. But as I look back, there's something as I was coming out of the Air Force that really, a couple of things, but one thing that resonated with me, and I forget who said this, or coined this phrase, but build a bridge before you need it. Just made sense to me. I'm already relational.
Yeah.
Like, why not meet the people? Because people are like, well, I get asked this a lot. What's your end game? I'm like, end game? There is no end game. I mean, it's everything's relational. I mean, I don't feel like I'm ever having a wasted conversation. I think everybody, because it keeps happening. I see it. You never know who you're going to meet. That 3 or 4 years down the road, something's going to happen. It happened, in 2016, I met a lady named Marion that is a producer for the Spartan Up podcast. And literally, she hit me up at the beginning of this year and said, hey, we're getting ready to do an event. We would love for you to come. That doesn't happen if I didn't facilitate that relationship. And I know 2015 that was going to happen, not at all. But if you're not ready for those things, if you're not giving that value and fostering those relationships, then you're not going to get those opportunities. But for me, it's outweighs. I'm giving and I want to give, but you just never know. And then I think I do it so much, you forget the stuff you've done, but it'll always come back to you. People are watching. So.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. People are watching. Dude, you nailed it. People are watching. I cannot believe how many people discount the service or the free. Like, I didn't get paid to go to PodFest, but because I went to PodFest and because I spoke there and the right people were in my room at the right time as I was giving my talk, I'm now going to that Spartan Race World Championship to be on the media team, to do some podcasting. And I just got an email yesterday, and they said, we'd love for you to be on an expert panel about resilience in athletes and entrepreneurship, like the whole deal. Like, what does it take to be resilient? How do we foster this resilience culture and like all that? So I'm going to be on a panel with a bunch of other experts talking about athlete and like resilience, which is in my wheelhouse, and they said, we're going to add this one little thing to it. Like, that's very cool. And there's thousands of people there. I never know if my next client is in that group. I never know if my next podcast guest that I have on my show makes my show go viral, bigger than, like John Lee Dumas or Jordan Harbinger or Pat Flynn, or like, you never know. These guys are icons. These guys are like the OGs of podcasting. These guys are at the top of their game. I'm one guest away. I'm one service away. Because and even then you were like, it'd be a really good idea if you volunteered. I'm like, I'd love to, Like, I think that'd be great. And so I volunteered it. Not only did I speak, but I volunteered. So they gave and I gave. Next year, I already told Chris, I said, dude, I want to volunteer again. He's like, you're on the list. Let's do it. I'm like, heck yeah. So now I already know.
The other thing too, Sean, and especially from that perspective, and that's why it was easier for me, is because I don't volunteer. When I do it, I don't go, oh, I'm just checking a block and like I just want to show up for my 3 hours or 5 hours and then 100%. Go do something else. I've always treated these things like they're my own. Like, because here's the thing, right? Like if I do an event, right, I need to look for people that are like my mindset is, because you've seen it, we've all seen it. There's people that are doing just enough. You know what I mean? Like where's Johnny or where's Sue? They're finding a way to do anything but really truly help. They just want a kind of free ride. But if you really add value and treat it like it's your own, you know what I mean? Like that goes a long way. And then that's just to me how it's so easy to do that to me. And I don't know why people kind of miss that. And I don't think you can ever outlive, right? Because what people, and I've had this, Sean, so many times that podcast through the years. Because people, I'm not really paying attention, but people are always watching you and what you're doing. So they're like, on many occasions, certain people have said, and pretty influential people, wow, like you're really hustling, we really see you're everywhere, you're really helping out, you're really doing these things, and then that's the thing, I'm not doing it like, oh, I'm getting paid, $50,000 to do such and such, it's literally, the pay is infinite, because like you just said, those people that see are later going to be the people that know, hey, I've seen him work here, I've seen him do that, I've seen him do this, and then, your pay will be at that point. I mean, it's just, to me, it's that service we talked about, and it always comes back, and that's what I think I learned in the military is, when I did honor guard, I used to think, Air Force honor guard, I thought, there's no way I'll give up my weekends and holidays to do something like that. Why would anyone want to do that? And then when I did honor guard, like right away, and it's hard to explain, it's like the gift you get given back to you. Like I'll never forget those experiences and the honor and just the chance to actually be there and even in a funeral, which is a sad thing, to be able to be that person that was in their moment, to be a conduit and to be kind of a presenter for the government for on behalf of the President of the United States. I mean those honors, it's like those are things that I'll never forget. And so, to me, I just transfer that over, like, as you're coming out, is, add value, give value. And then that's, obviously a business principle is if you're truly doing that in your business and servicing your customers, you're going to crush it.
Yep. Absolutely, man. 100%. So let's talk about that. Let's go back. What was a transformational moment that changed your life and put you on the path to what you're doing today?
Yeah, and Sean, I think I've mentioned it, but I got to talk 2 specific moments easily that happened that changed my life. One was obviously going in the Air Force and staying for 20 years. If I did not stay 20 years, and if you look at the years I went in 1995, I didn't know anything about computers. I didn't want to know anything about computers. I used to go with my grandfather and see, the guy behind the keyboard, chicken pecking on the keyboard. I'm like, good thing I'll never have to worry about those stupid things. Like, I'm going to go out and work, have fun with them. Then I get in the Air Force in 1995 and get put in communications, and then all of a sudden now I'm forced to learn it. And then if you look from 1995 to 2015 in tech and IT, where we came from to where we were in 1995, barely having one computer per 3 or 4 people, and maybe one work center having 1 or 2 computers, to now everybody having a computer and 3 or 4 monitors. And then everything over IP and the ability to do video teleconferencing and drones. I mean, that's unreal in 1995. And so then also what happened between 1995 and 2001, September 11th changed everything. And I was tactical communications almost from the very beginning. So, I deployed to Kuwait in 1996 for the first time. So I'm like 19 years old working at the airport, talking to Kuwaiti officers who had gone through the invasion. And that was like while I was in high school, that invasion happened. And you could see, like I don't want to be graphic, but, like the evidence of the destruction and the loss of life and stuff. And, those things. And then I deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, went to Africa, Djibouti, Kenya. So when you do things like that, that changes your life. Like there's no way you can go through those 20 years and do those kind of things and then just go out and be the same as what you were when you went in.
Yep.
So that totally changed my life, So all of a sudden, instead of wanting to go back and live where I lived, I saw the world. I love travel. I love making a difference in people's lives, and being a part of something bigger. So that was the first thing, is being in for 20 years, not being able to go back to what my life was before. Second thing was in 2014, and this is what we've talked even on my podcast with you, is while I was in, I knew I wanted to do business. I just didn't know what. And then because I was in my career, I was kind of head down. I was in a unit at the end called Joint Communication Support Element. We did a lot of, we were either exercising to go or we were gone. So I wasn't really ever focused on the business at that point or knew what I would do. But when I got out in 2014, I knew I was getting out. So I went to an e-marketing group that, put me on the trajectory that I'm on now, is, and it's interesting to look back where literally I said to myself at the end of 2013, okay, I want to go into business. I don't know what. Let me meet people in the local community. And so I found what I was looking for, like that very first day. Literally, that blows my mind that can happen. But that is what I would say was the transformational moment. Those two things in conjunction led to each other, that led to this podcasting and what we're talking about on the show today. So I would say that would be
heck yeah, man,
transformational moment.
I love it. So let everybody know, what is that military podcast network? Like what does that all entail? What does that do?
Yeah. So as I was, just kind of talked about that business organization, Tampa Bay Business Owners Organization, Chris Kermitos's wife, Katie, started her podcast, Biz Women Rock, in February of 2014. And so she was bringing back, first 2 or 3 months, she would do workshops and like main events to where they were talking about like the lessons she was learning. And at that same time, Chris was starting what's called Florida Podcasters Association. It was a meetup in Tampa. And Podfest started at the beginning of 2015. So right around that time, there was a guy named Glenn Hebert that is called Glenn the Geek, has Horse Radio Network, which is a podcast network. So there's a group of podcasts all related to the horse space. So between hearing Glenn kind of train us and have kind of some talks to our group, and really understanding why he did the network. And then of course podcasting's relatively early. It only really started in around 2006. So Glenn has been doing it now for 11 years. So he was telling us some of the lessons learned and what it was like at the beginning, and how he would get anybody to invest in the shows. He would go to trade shows, and he was telling us all these strategies. So I started hearing this network concept, and then that I want to say it was probably the first podcast. I think there was someone who had a craft brewery podcast network. I was exposed to maybe 2-3 different kinds of networks, and then I was like, as I was thinking what I would do, I was like, okay, I care about business, but you probably the same way myself. If you've ever been involved in the military, we all care about all of it. But
right.
Only do so much, and it's down. So my thought was, wow, I don't, I kind of did a little research. As far as I knew at the time, I didn't see any other podcast network related to the military. And I'm like, I care about all that. So if I can build a network of podcasts, and I used to say I could see 50 shows, but at this point, I don't even think there is a number. But I could easily see, 100 to 300 podcasts easily. You could have a podcast network all related to the military, because it's just, spouse issues, mental health, space aid, USO. So it's really early on. We have just started, but there's so many different ideas I have of bringing on shows. So from a customer perspective, or from getting content using podcasting, that's kind of part of it, is just getting out information for different things in the military space. And then, the business component, there's some things that you can do off of, building communities for each of the things and courses. And, there's a lot of kind of business components to it. But that's the gist of what the podcast network is becoming.
Love it. Absolutely love it, man. Outstanding. So you take your why, you take your transformational moment. You've learned some things, spent 20 years in the Air Force, which is amazing. And now you're out and you're elevating the world around you, and you're in bunker labs, as a city leader. and you got your Veterans in Business show, and you've got the Ragnar Life Podcast, and you're doing so much, which is absolutely incredible. You're at veteran conferences, you're at podcast conferences, and you're in it, you're doing it, you're in the space. So what are you doing that is giving back or even elevating the world around you? I know when you go to these conferences, you're serving, you're on the volunteer teams a lot, but taking your why, taking your transformational moment, how do you feel that you're elevating the world around you?
Yeah, and so I think that goes. There's a lot to that answer, I think. But what is awesome and what I see is because of the value. I mean, we've talked about it. Like, there's so many ways. I listened to a podcast last night. I was doing some driving where they were talking about how critical leadership is in a company, and as you're doing business and doing life, like, other people are watching you. I think that's how you're elevating the world around you. Like, none of us, I don't think, really realize it or think about it, but like there's so many people who have said, you said this and it helped me do that. And it's cool to see, and it does. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say it, like, gives you that pump up. Like, that's what it's all about. When I make a connection, you can't control what happens after that, but you realize it, and that's what I'm able to do now. Because I've done more concentrated networking in these spaces, I now have certain people that if I can put them together, like, they can, like, triple what they're doing on both sides. So the ripple effect of how you're elevating those people and giving value that's going to, transform, I don't even know the number of lives. I mean, that's, it's just a ripple effect of doing these things, and that's why it's such a powerful thing. I mean, what you're doing right now, what we're doing, you talk a lot, and I think that's where I'll be moving into to elevate even more. Like, I need to do more public speaking. I mean, I think we're all maybe a little bit that way to where, I mean, I even hate to say, I have it on my LinkedIn profile, podcast expert, but I don't feel like I'm a podcast expert. I don't feel like, you do 20 years in the military, we don't usually do a mission and then come back and really truly appreciate it, right? You're on to the next thing. So I think that's how I'm elevating the world. I continue to want to do that better, to get, a little bit better at knowing, and I don't mean you shouldn't connect. I like to connect people anyway, but sometimes you have to be careful of which two people you put together, because you want to add value and not waste people's time. I know it sounds bad, but if you really understand what I mean, it's not a negative, but certain people just aren't going to add value to someone else, and people are doing a lot of things that are busy, so it really can be a detriment. So I think I've gotten better at making sure I put the right people together. And it doesn't mean maybe I'll put one person with them, and then based on that conversation, then put the other two with them. I'm doing things like that more now, just to be a little bit better and more careful, because I used to just anybody and just quickly put them together. And I'll do that a little bit now, but I'm a little bit more careful to put really, really the right people together at the right time. And I mean, that's always going to be, you're always going to be able to get a lot accomplished that way. So I think I agree. That's probably the best I can describe.
Yep, absolutely, man. I agree. I always want to lead with value and service, because I just feel like you come from an unselfish place, and people pick up on that stuff. They pick up on well, that kind of seems self-serving. How many messages I get every week that are like, hey, love what you're doing, would love to pick your brain. And I want to be nice, and I'm like, well, I got about 10 or 15 minutes, like, yeah, let me get on the phone with you for, let's say, 30 minutes or an hour. I'm like, I mean, I got other things I could be doing, and sometimes I say yes, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, I could probably help you out, which I never know if it's going to lead to a coaching client or something like that, or I unlock something for the kid. But then sometimes I'm like, look, man, I'm slammed. I just don't have the time. I could maybe move things around, but picking my brain costs money. And they're like, oh, okay, well, have a nice day. That's gonna be all the evidence I need.
I think that brings up a good point too. And I'm getting better at realizing that I've spent a lot of money post-military. The Air Force spent a lot of money on me for my education. So of course we're at a certain level coming out of the Air Force based on 20 years of military service. They give you, different leadership courses at different levels, and just they're giving you tons of money and to make you be the best you can be in the military space. And then I went out, and then after I've invested in these conferences and in these trainings. So I think sometimes people really forget. It's not that I don't want to help, but like a lot of our knowledge we've actually paid to get. And so certain, who doesn't want to help? But I mean, I think, it's really something people need to remember is, and even us, right, as we ask other people to be able to ask the right questions, but be respectful of, like, if it's something, you should be, like, booking them to do and paying for it, that's, everybody likes to help, but we also, a lot of these things is what we do for our living. So, and you can only, it can only be really probably effective if it is. I think there's something to be said, too, about, because I'm in a mastermind, I pay more money than a lot of people would pay, but I think it goes to the point of, like, if you value something, you usually would pay for it, and you value more of what you pay for. So in a weird way, even if it's a little bit of money, it's actually usually a better thing for both people's experiences.
Yeah, 100%, man. And like I was saying, you never know that one person's going to see it, that one person's going to take notice, that one person, and that's all it takes is one person. One person to, like I don't know what's going to happen at the Spartan Race World Championship. I have no idea. I could be on the panel, and all of a sudden, somebody hears me and they want to book me. Awesome. And then I get to another gig and another gig and another gig, But I can literally track where all this stuff's coming from, and I give out a lot of content on social media. Give out a ton of content. And I have the show, and I have other avenues, I guess you could say. I have a bunch of avenues that people can connect with me. But I'll give a lot of stuff away, and people notice that stuff.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to that, too, as well. And there's, of course, two schools of thought, right, I think Gary Vaynerchuk wrote a book called Jab, Jab, Right Hook. And the basic premise is you give, and then ask for the sale, if you will, or for the money or for what your agenda is. And I think you do that well of give, because not every, I think there's that whole abundance mentality and scarcity mentality. So a lot of people are like, this is all my information. I'm going to only give it to people if they pay for it. But you give, and you're such a good example of how to do it right. Like crazy amounts of information. Like you take a lot of time to give stuff that, we just talked about, that you've invested your money and time in, and that like people usually pay for, and you give a lot of that. But I think like a lot of the speakers talk about, when you do that, it's not like a lot of these things that people can't find out or figure out, but what they see is like, wow, like look at all he gives for free. Imagine what you get if you pay for it. So I love what you're doing and the value that you give. And, I definitely am kind of learning to do that as well as, and I think sometimes though, and maybe in a bad way, like I think my personality is like, I do want to help everyone. So I do want to just give. But I think the hard part is like you can really only be effective for the people you're trying to truly help, or that would be able to be affected if you actually do charge for it. Because, we need to make a living. So.
Oh yeah, there you go. I mean, I do. Don't get me wrong. I do charge for a lot, and I get paid for a lot of what I do. But it's those little things. I don't mind putting out some content that's really gonna help somebody. So
absolutely.
Let's talk about this. Where does the rest of 2019 take you? What do you got going on? I know you're calling in right now from Washington, D.C., getting ready for the Military Influencers Conference. So talk about the rest of 2019 and what that looks like.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned earlier, too, I'm a part of what's called Bunker Labs, and it's a veteran business nonprofit. One part of that they've got what's called the Veteran in Residence Program. And so the new cohort, the next group of up to 10 either military spouse or veteran business owners will be selected and start in October. Or I think actually starts the very beginning of November. But so that'll be part of the end of the year, is being involved in the selection process and being involved with, beginning to look, hey, what can we do better for this next group of people? And of course, I love being a part of that, because that fits right into my customer set, for the veteran and business portion of what I do. My heart is business and helping now that niche of veterans. So where the podcast network is a business and the veteran business is another extension of that business, that is a continual thing. So and I just got back from a conference this past weekend, and I invested some money. So there's a organization, I don't know if all your audience is familiar or if you are, but there's a thing called Entrepreneur Organization, and they have chapters all over the world. And basically that organization is, you have to be $1 million revenue business, and they help you kind of at that level, take you from that to scale up from there. There's a person named Sean Thomas that kind of goes back to conferences. I saw him speak a few years ago. Didn't know at the time his dad was a sergeant major. So he has been involved with that organization. He bought and sold a business a few years ago. He had a business for 12 years, but he sold it. So he's been a part of mentoring, like kind of a mentorship group for startups to grow their business to $1 million. He had this conference that I paid to go to last weekend, and he just launched a new brand called Accelerator Organization, and that takes businesses from startups to $1 million revenue point as quickly as possible. And really what's cool about that for me and timing is literally that's a lot of the subset of the people. Like I would say, without looking at statistics, most of the people involved right now with the Bunker Lab program, like with the veteran residents, fall into that of the startup phase to trying to get to the $1 million level. And what was interesting about that weekend is you mentioned what's so magical about that $1 million number isn't just like, oh, I'm a millionaire, because it doesn't mean, if you do $1 million revenue business, doesn't mean you as a business owner now have $1 million that you're just taking out.
Right.
But what's significant about that, and maybe I'm the only one that had never heard of this, but he had mentioned this weekend, what's significant about that number is you can actually at that point now more focus on your business instead of working in it. Because at first, if you start out like myself, you're doing the social media, you're doing the hiring, if you can hire, you're doing everything, right? And you've started and sold businesses already, so this as well as anyone. There's a lot to a business, but if you get to that level, you can truly start to look at, okay, how can I do it better? Who can I hire? Who can I bring in for more sales, and then scale that business. But that $1 million mark, I guess, is significant for that reason. So that was really cool. So that's kind of ongoing, right? So at the end of the year is to take what I'm learning in that and apply it, to my own business and to the business and the people that I'm helping in the veteran business space through my podcast and through the Bunker Labs veteran residence program. So that'll be, more toward the end of the year as well. I'm here in Washington, D.C., as you mentioned, to be a part of what's called it's a third year they've had the military, or the third year. It's the third time. It started in 2017, October 2017. And, of course, at the time, I was like, how can I not go to something called the Military Influence Conference if I don't, if I have a podcast network in the military space, I got to be there. So
right.
And this year, they're kind of focusing more on podcasting, which is cool. So I'm actually both leading and on a panel call with people, which is pretty kind of surreal for me to kind of meet some of my mentors coming out of the military. But Chris Kimmitz is going to be a part of that session next Sunday. Ryan Fanzo, I don't know if anybody in your audience or who he is, but our social fans, he was kind of big, and he actually used to work at the Pentagon, but he has an IT background. Now he's a live video, I would say, expert podcaster.
Okay.
He just a little bit younger than me, but just knows this stuff. So he lives in this area, so they would bring him in to talk about the live video component and really kind of how military people that kind of live in the security world and the top secret clearances and stuff, and kind of balance the information that we're getting out in podcasting and how that works in the government space. And Dave Jackson, School of Podcasting, who's actually been inducted into kind of award, like a podcast Hall of Fame already. So I'm able was able to bring in those people and be involved in that panel or that group of people. So that's why I'm in town to get ready for that. So that's going on. Sure, there's more going on this year, but I don't know, like in the military, or even in kind of a past life, I used to look at things like, it's like, it's the end of the year, you do things and you just kind of take a break, take a month off. I think now in the things I'm involved in, I love doing it. So it's always looking at ways to improve. Like, I'll be promoting the podcast. I'm actually helping with a booth next week at a conference called FinCon, which is in the financial media space. So it's continuing to network. I'm continuing to put people together, meet people in San Francisco. Got some people I've already met that I want to kind of bring into Bunker Lab world. So I think, I'm always doing those kind of things. So that's what I have going on through at least the end of the year. And then how I do it is I, kind of did it at the end of last year. I took a knee for maybe, like around Christmas for about 2-3 weeks and formed out my next year. And, some things have changed, but tripled down on conferences and relationships that I get at these conferences. So what I'll do now at the end of the year is evaluate that for next year and start to form next year. It's like, okay, adjust based on how this year went and which ones do you kind of balance more of. And I think where you're at in life, kind of dictates some of that. So, and then you mentioned, of course, that's a huge thing coming up is the Spartan podcast event or media event they're having at the end of September. And also, this is another thing we talked about a little bit, but there's a lot of things from a value perspective. And this goes back, and this is just how my mind works, and I'm wired this way. I don't. It's strategy, but it's easy for me to do because I love to help things that I believe in, causes that I appreciate. So when she hit me up at the beginning of the year, and then we started talking, like she couldn't go to Podfest, and at the time she wasn't gonna have anyone there. So I helped. I was like, anything you need, I'm gonna be. I'm never gonna miss Podfest. So I was like, I'll pass out information, whatever you need me to do, I'll do for you. Really been helping her all year. So really excited to see what happens with the event. So I think it's not just me kind of attending some of these things. It's actually always promoting. So I'm telling, doing things almost as if I worked for Spartan to get the word out. Because to me, it doesn't matter if I get paid. Like any success, you can know in your mind that if you have a part of that, that if you didn't help, you just never know, right? Those little things that may seem little, they'd be huge things. So that's how
for sure.
Just continue forever.
Yeah, for sure, man. So, hey, let's do this. As we close the show, let's do this. I want to do a shameless plug, and I want you to plug your websites, social media, programs, product, services, whatever it is that you want the audience to know and to do. Shamelessly plug. Go.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that, Sean. I would say, I will start out by saying, I was an IT guy, and I was a guy that came out of the military. I really didn't use social media for the most part. I was really kind of private based on what I was doing in the military. But now at this point, I absolutely love all the tools that we have. So I'm on every single platform there is. I went through that somewhat, like the main platform. So you can reach out to me on Facebook. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me on Instagram. Twitter. I don't use Twitter as much, but any of those platforms, definitely find me there. I have Facebook pages for the podcast network. Send me a message there on Facebook Messenger. Email. At this point, I need to get our email, but at gmail.com. You can email me there. You can email me at my personal email is my last name GANPROOYEN 77 at yahoo.com. So yeah, at gmail.com. And that's my personal email. You can go ahead and email me there. I don't really give out my phone number because at this point, if I don't know the person who's calling me, I don't answer it. So, and you can go website. I need to make a website better, but I think at this point, a lot of these other areas is as much your website. I've got Facebook groups. There's a Facebook group for my show, the Veterans in Business Facebook group. So, but so far, really only trying to keep people that are veterans, military members of businesses in there. But definitely reach out. I go to and kind of have those conversations with people as they come in. So I would say if somebody wants to find where I'm at or what I'm doing, there's about a million ways. So, and then of course my podcast, I have the Veterans in Business show. You can find it on all the platforms you mentioned for your show. It's pretty much on every podcast place that you can get. And if it's not there, send me a note and I'll make sure I put it there.
Perfect. Dude, I love what you're doing, and I just, man, I'm inspired. You know, I mean, if anybody has that service mindset, it is you. And to see what happens when you serve and you give, and you know, there's a couple of people that are like, I'm only a speaker because I want to inspire people. I don't care about the money. I'm like, cool, do 20 free gigs, and they're like, what? Then I got to pay. I'm like, well, no crap. If you're not in it for the money, then you'll do it for free. Do it for free. See what happens.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
And they'll be like, nope.
Because I'm in a mastermind I was telling you about it, and a guy named Aaron Walker, he's from the top.
Aaron Walker's amazing.
Yeah, but he said, he brought that up. I mean, we meet every single week, and he's like, and he just asked that question. I want to say it was this Monday, but he's like, he said just a certain question. A lot of people say, like we kind of don't want to mention the money. He's like, look, what's wrong with that? He's like, there's nothing wrong with the money. A lot of times they make it be this bad thing. He's like, I do like the money. Like, you can't do the things and serve if you don't have the money. So there's definitely nothing wrong with that. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, this has been absolutely incredible, man. I love spending time with you, and what you have going on is nothing short of inspiring and amazing. And, you're just like an expert connector, and you just give and you serve, and to see what comes from that has been absolutely amazing, man. And so I love our talks. We talk a couple times a month, kind of update each other on what we're doing. And, you're always reaching out to me, and I appreciate that. And I love you for it. And I just wish you the best, man, for the rest of 2019.
Thank you, Sean. And I mean, and it's mutual admiration. And again, this is an example, right? Just you and me talking that's an example of it. It wasn't for what we're doing. Like, if you were, and I don't want to say it, like something that doesn't relate to what we're doing and serving, like we wouldn't probably know each other and talk all the time. So like these things that I forget about, and it would take me too long to talk about all the things that are coming out of years of doing the things that I've done post-military, and even during the, kind of going back and getting the connections from the military time that I was in. It's never been a better time and more opportunities than now. And I love, and that's what I wanted to offer to anybody in the audience. If you need, my connections are always anybody's connections. If you see somebody that I know that you're needing something from, I mean, I'm always willing to have that conversation. Of course, just not just blanket. Like I would have to make sure it will be a good connection for both sides, but definitely hit me up for that. And I want to plug one more thing that I'm actually getting ready to do. If anybody in your audience is kind of in the veteran business space, I'm actually launching a mastermind coming up here in the next, I don't want to give a date because I'm actually figuring that out right now, but I would say probably in the next 60 days, I'm launching my mastermind kind of in that space. So I'm already, got some people I'm going to reach out to invite in, but basically it's going to be pretty similar to what I'm involved with, and just, I knew when I started being in the mastermind that I would start my own, so that's coming up definitely. But that's more specific to any of your audience that's wanting to invest in themselves, because I mean, you can speak to masterminds. I'm sure you have on your show.
I have one. I have a mastermind.
If you're serious about life, you should be in them. I don't think anybody. I think most people that have masterminds are in a mastermind of their own. I mean, it's
right.
I forget. I mean, it's weird. You forget what you're getting from the masterminds a lot of times, because I'll be just saying stuff and it's like in your mind, like, how do people not know this? And then you're like, wait a minute. Like every week we talk about this. So it's like you have a board of directors and. You know what I mean? And just the name, that conference I was at last week, it was, as you hear what people can help other people with, that's, no one person has all the answers, and there's so many perspectives you get.
Right.
And when you pay into a group and invest in a group of people, like you can do so much more collectively for each other than you can by yourself. So, stepping out in the mastermind, people that are in there and they're serious about the things that they're trying to do. You're messing out if you're not in it, and investing and keep investing and keep leveling up in the type of mastermind you're in.
Yep, absolutely, man. Nailed it. Dude, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Absolutely amazing guest, doing amazing things, and we'll be talking real soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean, and thank you to your audience. I appreciate everyone listening today. And thank you, Sean, again. And you're awesome, and keep being a badass.
Thank you, brother. Life Transformation Radio listeners, an amazing guest impacting the world around him. If anything that we talked about today resonated with you, please connect with James on LinkedIn and Facebook. Go check out his podcast, Veterans in Business Show. The Veterans in Business Show. Go check out the podcast. It's available right there in the show notes. Everywhere where podcasts are listened to, connect with him here in LinkedIn and Facebook and tell him that you heard his episode on Life Transformation Radio. And with that, I close the show by saying, live your brand. Find opportunities every day to live out the core values that you hold deep in your heart. And I call this living your brand. So until next episode, live a great life.